Good evening, I'm your host Prasad and you're watching KiniNews. Our first story is a bit of a tricky subject, so do keep your comments pleasant. We're not all fearless like Dr. Mahathir Mohamad or Hassan Karim in this case.
A lawmaker has argued that the constitutional ban on the young di-Pertuan Agong from being involved in business also applies to sultans. PKR's Pasir Gudang MP Hassan Karim said this is because the federal constitution also has a provision whereby federal laws override state laws that are in conflict with it. Article 43(3) of the federal constitution states that the young di-Pertuan Agong shall not actively engage in any commercial enterprise. Meanwhile, Article 75 of the constitution states that when a state law is inconsistent with federal law, the federal law shall prevail and the state law shall, to the extent of its inconsistency, be void. Hence, Hassan argued that as the 9 states with sultans are part of the federation, federal law also takes effect in states. He said this means that prohibitions on the Agong under Article 34(3) also apply to the sultans of the states. While he did not name any sultan specifically, Hassan's remarks came after Malaysia Kini reported on Johor ruler Sultan Ibrahim Sultan Iskandar's business interests and partners in the Maharani Energy Gateway project. The project has a gross value of 99 billion ringgit over 10 years. The monarch has a 40% stake in the project, while his close associate Daing A. Malek, Daing A. Rahman holds a 15% stake. Sultan Ibrahim also owns 99% of a sand mining company that is a potential supplier of sand for sea reclamation works in the Maharani Energy Gateway. This is among several business ventures that the Sultan is involved in.
Zahid Hamidi is a busy man, and like most busy people, his banking needs are taken care of by other people. He told the court today that he entrusted it to one person, the same person who pays his water, electricity and even his credit card bills.
UMNO Chief Ahmad Zahid Hamidi told the High Court in Kuala Lumpur on Tuesday that he thought well of Mazlina Mazlan Ramli. He said this is why he trusted her to manage his personal accounts as well as the account of Yayasan Akal Budi, which he owns. Zahid said his former executive secretary was also entrusted with managing the payment of his water and electricity bills. He added that at all times he would seek Mazlina's help to manage various personal financial matters, including the payment of his credit cards. He said he would ask Mazlina for the debit or credit amount for his credit cards before payment is made. Zahid explained that he did not have the time to contact the bank himself to ask about his credit card statements because he was too busy. The former Deputy Prime Minister said this in his defense proceedings on 47 charges involving breach of trust, corruption and money laundering. In the previous proceeding, Zahid denied that he had pointed fingers at Mazlina over the settlement of his personal credit card bills using the foundation's checks in order to absolve himself. Earlier, Zahid confirmed that he used 6 credit cards to make payments for his personal expenses during official visits abroad between 2013 and 2016, as well as for several purchases in Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya.
PN, or should I say Bersatu, still cannot get its mind off cabinet positions and they're keen on one position in particular, a position that was supposedly promised to them.
Perikatan Nasional has revealed that it has a written agreement with Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob on who should be Deputy Prime Minister. Speaking to Free Malaysia today, PN Information Chief Wan Saiful Wan Jan said the agreement was signed before Ismail Sabri became Prime Minister. However, Ismail Sabri did not appoint a deputy after he became Prime Minister last August. Instead, he has 4 senior ministers. On Saturday, Bersatu President Muhyiddin Yassin revealed that he had recently met Ismail Sabri, where cabinet appointments were discussed. Wan Saiful said Bersatu would wait and see if Ismail Sabri would keep his promises. He added that surely Ismail Sabri wants to be remembered as someone who keeps his promises. Wan Saiful also pointed out that there were some government appointees from Bersatu and PAS who were not retained in Ismail Sabri's administration.
Your monthly loan payments are likely to go up a little now the Bank Negara has upped its interest rate.
Bank Negara Malaysia raised its benchmark interest rates for the second straight meeting today. The central bank lifted its overnight policy rate by 25 basis points to 2.25%, reported Reuters. Previously, it reported that 22 economists polled by Reuters expected the hike. This comes as it looks to tame rising inflation while keeping an eye on unexpectedly weak global economic growth. It was the first rise at a consecutive Bank Negara meeting in more than a decade. It raised interest rates from a historical low of 1.75% at its last meeting in May. The central bank said it had decided on a further adjustment after considering positive growth prospects for the Malaysian economy, including firmer domestic demand and a recovery in tourism following the reopening of borders. BNM said any further adjustments to interest rates would be measured and gradual.
Politicians will be politicians, but how far are some willing to go to get their way? According to a PKR lawmaker, some are even willing to toy with democracy.
Lembah Pantai MP Fahmi Fadzil has revealed that certain politicians try to use the reform bills, such as the anti-hopping law, as bargaining chips. He said this caused a delay in drafting the law. Fahmi described the action as akin to toying with Malaysian democracy. Speaking to reporters in Petaling Jaya today after a forum organized by Bersih and Bar Council, Fahmi said the anti-hopping law has become like a proxy war. He said that Malaysian democracy should not be anyone's bargaining chip. The lawmaker currently sits in a bipartisan committee that oversees the implementation of systemic reforms as agreed between Pakatan Harapan and Ismail Sabri Yaakob government. Before speaking to reporters, Fahmi shared in the forum a bit of his experience sitting in the committee. He said discussions had been very tense between representatives of the ruling parties.
The prosecution in Najib's trial have argued that the former Prime Minister's bid to allow the Queen's Counsel to represent him is not needed because Shafi Abdullah and his team have been defending Najib since 2018.
A Queen's Counsel from the United Kingdom did not act for Najib Abdul Razak when the former Prime Minister's 42 million ringgit SRC international corruption case was brought to court in 2018, the Kuala Lumpur High Court heard. Deputy Public Prosecutor V. Sitambaram submitted this during today's hearing of an application to allow Jonathan Laidlaw to be temporarily admitted to the Malaysian Bar. This is so the Queen's Counsel could represent Najib in the upcoming SRC appeal before the federal court. The DPP submitted that the QC's assistance is not needed. This is because Najib's legal team, led by Defence Counsel Muhammad Shafi Abdullah, argued for the former Premier when the trial was at the High Court and all the way through the initial appeal before the Court of Appeal. In objecting against the QC bid, the DPP cited a federal court ruling in an appeal linked to a 2006 failed attempt to temporarily allow UK lawyer Cherry Booth to represent a party in a Malaysian court case. The federal court has set 10 days in August to hear Najib's final appeal to quash his conviction, as well as a sentence of 12 years in jail and 210 million ringgit fine. Najib was convicted for 1 count of abuse of power, 3 counts of criminal breach of trust, and 3 counts of money laundering linked to 42 million ringgit from SRC.
The MIC's longest-serving deputy president passed away last night.
Former MIC Deputy President S. Subramaniam has passed away at the age of 78. His son S. Sunter said Subramaniam died peacefully in his sleep around 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Sunter said his father had been bedridden at home for almost 11 years after suffering a stroke in November 2011. Subramaniam was the longest-serving MIC Deputy President from 1979 to 2006, before he was ousted by G. Palanivel in the 2006 party polls. He also served 2 terms as Damansara MP and another 4 terms as Segamat MP. He was also a deputy minister under 3 different former prime ministers, Hussein On, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad and Abdullah Ahmad Badawi.
And that is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook for the latest news updates. If you'd like to support independent media, do consider subscribing to MalaysiaKini.com. I'm Prasad. Thank you for watching.